Hey everyone, Lauren here, and we're going to get our mixed media messy on and have some fun. So I've just got these two photos of my son, just some close-up randomly taken one day, and I thought I'd have them sitting there on an 8.5 by 11 layout or cardstock, and then I would work out what I went from there. I knew I wanted to do mixed media, which is why I've got those 3 distress oxides that we got in the mixed media kit there to the right. And then I'm just having a play with, first with the words. So my little box, really useful box here. And you can see I've separated them into words, into labels, into normal die cuts. That way if what I'm looking for can be found a little bit easier. So I'm just pulling out in a few colours, the blue, the pink, the light blue, orange, and I think I end up with all the colours. I'm pretty sure I even add in the green. And just having a little play to see. I was sort of just thinking one of these scripty words as a title. Now, the only scripty word I've pulled out is the awesome. And that actually ends up on the page. So I've got that camera there, which is printed on the acetate. Some of these are printed on cardstock. The one up the top with that circle with the heart is vellum, or it's actually tracing paper, but just may as well be vellum. And I'm just pulling out a few different things. Oh yeah, and some yellow as well. So just going to put them to the side and work out what I want. I did wonder if a frame would be ideal, but I can't make that work as much as I try to. Just not gonna, I don't want to cover it up too much and lose the point of having a frame. So I'm going to use the packaging technique and that's how I'm going to start with the packaging technique. So I'm going to put a few drops on here, add some water and put it onto my page. But then you see as I go along, there's a few other tools and techniques that I use to create this background. So just putting the jobs of a few spots so that I can then spread it out. Just using the paper or the plastic. It's actually from the embellishments, just to move it around and then moving the paper so that the colour moves. Now it's just normal cardstock. It's actually the cardstock that I print on, and it hasn't been gessoed, so it starts to suck into the paper, which means it starts to dry and the colour gets a bit different. But then also using the heat gun means that I'm blowing the colour around, and you can see that it adds different layers of the colour as it dries, more deeper in other colours, in other sections than other parts, because there's more colour. So I just flicked on some water, let it dry for a couple of minutes, and then that lifts off the colour as well, leaving it like a bleached kind of look. And I'm just going to use my fan brush just to put some ink splatters on, just because I can. And I'm going to let it dry, and see I've got a fair bit there and I've got things messy, so I'm just going to add it to a 12 by 12 because I originally thought I was going to do a 12 by 12, then I moved to the 8.5 by 11, and then I decided to make 2 just in case, and I end up using the 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to move on to the blue now. Now I'm going to be a bit more purposeful about the packaging technique, so I pulled out my ink stamp pad, stamp pad. Excuse me. And you can see here I dribbled the colour on, and then I'm using the pad to squish it out a little. You have to be careful with the ink pad because you could get like the corner edges inked up, and then you get like a straight edge rather than this more watercolory flowy look. So I'm just drying them off in between each colour just so that the colour doesn't blend too much. And I'm going to add some bigger blood like spots this way with my eyedropper or pipette, whichever one you have in your stash. You could always just do it with a paintbrush and dab some colour on that way. Adding some ink splatters to get some smaller dobs of colour. And you can see how this layout's just the background's coming together. And back to that 12 by 12, I'm going to add it on there and add a bit more because you can see the pink is much bigger than the blue at the moment. So really, mixed media backgrounds quite intense at the beginning, and as you're making them, you've got to just go with your gut and think about, okay, my photos will be roughly here if I layer and embellish a bit, that it's going to take up this amount of it. So a lot of it gets covered up, and it's good to have the differing parts of it in the background so that it just peeps out at certain areas. So here you can see this background is quite different to what it looks like at the end because there's not all of it showing. So I just wanted a little bit of the orange. I didn't really want to do what I'd already done with the pink and blue, so I'm just using the pipette to put some colour on. Excuse me. And then I wondered what the green would look like, if it would be a similar green to what is in the collection and the printables, but instead it makes it like an army green, and that is definitely not what I was aiming for. I'm aiming for something really nice and bright, so instead clean that off with a baby wipe and realize that the blue and orange are mixing in on some spots on the page, so I'm just using the wipe to clean that up so that it's not mixed in and have a bold greenness going on. That's not the right green. So all tidied up, all gonna add a little bit more of this orange because I didn't do ink splatters, so just did the big splats. So on it goes. Just add, like I said, it's like adding sprinkles at the end with the enamel dots and little pieces. It's adding it here at the beginning, and really just play. You can always cover up a fair bit of the craziness if you, like I said before, if you think about a rough position of how big your clusters will be, then it will kind of work out, or you can make it work, that's for sure, because you could definitely lay everything on your page, add, use a lead pencil to outline exactly where your cluster was, and then use your mixed media that way. I do that sometimes, so you can check out some of my videos to see how that works. But other times it's just nice to be free. But the good thing, like when you water it down, it's really fun because it's distress oxide, so it adds that chalky matte look and will change the colour, the level of colour and the tone that way. Or you could just leave it as a straight pigment, and there's lots in these re-inkers. I've made quite a few on with photos, and this is where I'm going to work out how the rest of the page is coming together. I'm going to use some of my PL cards that were printed to use as layering pieces. So on with that. It's a bit hard when you got two photos like this where I sort of want them, I don't want them straight, and I guess if they were straight, it might have worked on the frame a little bit better, but I wanted them, what's that, wonky to each other, however you want to say it. Now, if you watch my prep video this month or last month, you will know that when I cut the printables, I just cut them roughly, and this is when I'm making the page, is when I decide what kind of border I want to give to the cutout. So you can see this one, I went close but not too close to the word, and then this tab I'm going to add just the tiniest border so that you can't really tell, and it just works like that. So as I'm going, it doesn't take long to cut them. Sorry, I'm just pressing play on my tablet, I'm assuming, and just quickly goes, and that way it's easier at the beginning when I just really want to create and I don't want to spend forever fussy cutting. I just quickly roughly cut them and put them in the really useful box, but also it means I've got that choice when I'm going and creating, and it doesn't take long at all. So cutting out this camera, which is on the overhead projector sheet, which means it's basically like an acetate piece, and these other ones are cardstock. The Awesome is on tracing paper, so it's like a vellum, and I'm just going to have a little play. So you can see already that that top half, the mixed media, is covered up enough that it's just peeking through, and it makes it just work really well. And I've got to work on a bit under that photo there to the right. There's a big chunk that needs a little bit of filling. So I'm going to add that rainbow somewhere, and here's where I decide to add a bit of stamping to the background. So I've pulled out this Vicky Buden stamp and my Stays On ink, and I'm just going to use these little crosses as some layering. I had to add some interest, and that just means that your eye moves around and it's not just centered in the one spot. So you can see there, putting my photo back on, making sure I don't stamp on my photo because it stays on, so it ain't going to come off. Just adding it in that way, it just adds some depth to the background. It's a bit more pop of interest, and it's just really nice. And actually, I do something later with that stamp again, which I was really glad that I had the idea because I've never done that before and it works so well. So here I am using the Project Life printable cards that we've got in the kit. Again, I've printed a lot on cardstock and then some on acetate and some on the tracing paper vellum. If you heard that, that was my son. He just mouthed sorry, excuse me. Goodness. And then, so yeah, I'm just going to stick these two photos together so that when I'm layering, I'm not mucking around with that too much. And just going to go in. So I forgot that this green was on vellum, so I forgot the fact that it would be see-through and that colours behind it's not going to work. So instead it doesn't make it on here. I'm going to cut down the pages, just work out how it's all going to layer and how it's going to come together. It's really nice. This is my first layout, so I didn't want to cut into the pattern paper just yet. I just really like the fact that these printables are there and available. And they're just the perfect colours and the perfect patterns, so it was really good, really easy. So you can see here my layering's coming together pretty nicely. I'm not sure the last few pieces, so instead I'm going to start committing to it. And once I start committing, it means that I can make those last decisions about those smaller pink and yellow and the rainbow card. It just means I'm not trying to remember how exactly everything went on the blue one and the pink one goes. Just making sure it's all where I want it to go, because the photos aren't straight. I have to have a little play with how they're sitting and how the patterns and whatnot are sitting behind it. Just keeping it fun. On it goes. Probably could have ripped that Project Life card in half so that I had some of it left over. And I really like the way this rainbow worked. I ripped it in half so that the ripped edges were there, and then I lined it up on top so that it looked like I'd used a big piece of pattern paper, but really it wasn't. Seeing if the green was going to work, but then I realized I better check how big my cluster is getting, my layering, because I didn't want to cover up all of the background, but I also didn't want it having too close to the edges either. So it's working well. Glued it down with fun foam behind it so that it's up off the background, and just going to add some clusters and some embellishments. So on with the tabs, and then another one over here. So I end up with 3 tabs, the green one, the yellow one and the pink one. And because these are the printables, it's okay to use them all on one page. I did print a few, but also if I'm desperate for them again, I can print some more. On it goes. It just adds just an extra pop to the layer. It was really nice. So I'm going to add in this awesome. I'm going to lay it there and see how it goes as I'm building up the rest of the layout. On goes the rainbow, the loving you, and the camera. Now I had the idea of these circle embellishments coming off the page so that they were just half on there. I don't know why, it just appealed to me, but then I decided against it and I put it under the layout here. So it was good, because what I do soon with the stamp, it would have been in the way. But I'm just liking how that's all working. So I'm going to pop that acetate down. Now I popped the glue on the edge that's going to be hidden under the paper layers so that you can't see the glue. And I'm using fun foam to put up this loving you, just so there's an extra bit of dimension and shadow going on in the page. Doesn't need much, but it does definitely helps. On goes the vellum awesome with stapler, just because wet glue ruins the texture of vellum or tracing paper. I'm going to add some of these word stickers. These word stickers, the colours are just perfect. Well, actually the whole collection and the whole kit that Steph has put together is just lovely because of these colours as the base. But it just works. They're just so nice. So what am I thinking about? Oh, this is where I get out my stamp again. So let's just watch and see what I do. I was wondering if I was going to do a doodly border, and then I thought, what if I use the stamp? And it just works so nice. So some of the stamp on the edges, I made it a bit wider and coming into the page, and others are just a shorter, thinner border. So that's really just a lot of fun. And it just works so well with the background having the same stamp, but then the border having this stamp around. It's just really fun because of the different look it gives. It's not just a straight line or a dashed line that most doodly borders are when I make them. So adding a bit more to the background because it was just felt like it was lacking, and then I had to stop, otherwise pen to do some journaling, and I wonder how I'm going to journal on this layout, even though it doesn't need too much. And I find an awesome orange label. There's not too much orange going on, so it's good to tie that in and have it matching the label, the title, sorry. Just going to layer it in there on that bottom cluster where that circle embellishment is. And I'm just going to add the journaling just to the right of the label and keep that space on the left so that I can then put in some embellishments. And I decide on these wood veneer hearts that we also got in the collection, in the kit. So that was in our little goodies surprise bag. Now if you want to see what's in the kit, definitely check out the unboxing video, and hopefully you're enjoying your kits, and if not, you definitely want to get your hands on it and sign up because you don't want to miss out all this gorgeousness that's happening each month. So I'm just using my paint markers to colour in these wood veneer. They look fun in the wood veneer colour, especially because there's 3 of them, so it's not like there was just one by lonely. But I just like the fact that using my paint markers changed the colour of the wood veneer. I do later with the glossy accents on top of it to make it look like a puffy sticker. So on it goes. Sorry, my head's in the way. But that's the last of the layout there. So came together pretty quickly, and you can see some close-ups now. It's really fun just to have some imagination and play with some mixed media, and then just layer it in some wonky goodness, and it all came together. So hopefully you're getting into your kit and using your stash as well and enjoying yourself. So I'll see you next video. Bye.